You hop out. You hop out. Yo, E, stay in there, all right?
Corrupt cops are everywhere, but not all of their crimes go unnoticed.
Get out the car.
From brutally assaulting the victims to fabricating evidence and pinning the blame on innocent people, this video will show the dirty side of the police department.
I'm a farm boy. Took off my ain't hurting me at all. CPV, no. Central Park Projects, Tom.
Today, we will be going through some of the most horrendous cases where police officers tried to exert their authority. Luckily, the cameras caught up on their corrupt activities and exposed them to the world. Without further delay, let's get started. Chief asks for special treatment. The female police chief of Tampa, Mary O'Connor, was out with her husband on a golf cart with no license plate. The trooper on patrol pulled a traffic stop on them, but he had no clue that he was about to record something pretty interesting on his body cam. As soon as he got up to ask questions about their registration, the chief already had a plan brewing to get herself out of this mess. She asked if the trooper's body cam was on, clearly wanting to talk off the record. Without getting an answer from the trooper, she stupidly started exposing herself on camera. First, she showed her badge and told the cop that she was the female police chief. Connor then asked to be let go. Entitled much? The trooper went with it, but smartly recorded all of it on his camera. Then, she did something very much against the rules. She gave the traffic cop her personal card and told him to call her if he needed anything, insinuating that she would be willing to offer preferential help as recompense for letting her go now. The video went viral, and Connor had no choice but to resign from her post. Corrupt cops get physical. The Gwinnett County Police cops, Sergeant Michael Bongiovanni and Officer Robert McDonald, were recorded using excessive force on a man. Bongiovanni had pulled a traffic stop on Hollins without any apparent reason. The footage shows Hollins backing up with his hands up in the air, yet Bongiovanni still punches him in the face. He calls for backup. Then comes Officer McDonald, who sees a man lying on the ground, considers him a threat, and decides to kick him in his abdomen. He then goes on to point his gun at Hollins' temple and even uses his taser at one point. Complete abuse of authority here. Both the officers were fired the very next day. While Bongiovanni faces 10 years of probation, McDonald was on his way to spending 26 years behind bars. NYPD officers plant marijuana.
Alright, this was in the back seat on the floor. It's a marijuana cigarette. It's lit. Just had to put it out. Yo, I found a cigarette blunt, okay? It was lit when I found it on the floor.
There have been reports of thousands of marijuana arrests in New York. While that news made the public happy, this footage puts a question mark on whether the arrests were even valid. A BMW was stopped by the cops for taking a turn without signaling and having tinted windows. There were 4 men inside, and the driver had been charged guilty a few years back for assault. The cops suspected that they were part of a violent gang. The 2 cops thought that the car smelled of weed, so they called for backup. A couple of officers, Elmer Pastran and Kyle Erickson, put the gloves on and started searching the vehicle. First, they searched the back seat of the car and found nothing. 3.5 minutes go by, and Erickson's body cam turns off. What's interesting is that Pastran's body cam captured Erickson fiddling with something in the back seat. After a few minutes, Erickson's body cam turns on, just moments before he finds the drug. He pulls out the small piece of marijuana from the back seat and shows it to his fellow cops. The back seat, that had nothing in the start as recorded from the same body cams now, had the drug. Erickson used this planted drug to put the blame on the driver, and the cops arrested him right there and then. Even the driver had caught the officer fiddling with a plastic bag in the driver's seat, and when he inquired about it, he was told to back off. But despite his pleas, he was detained and transported to the police station. Officer uses taser on an old man on a wheelchair. A 64-year-old man was panhandling outside a store, so the employees called the cops to remove him from the store's entrance. But the store did not know that one of the cops would misuse his power. Officer Matthew Cavender arrived with his partner at the store. After identifying the man, they found out that the old man had 5 warrants. So, they decided to arrest him. There was some struggling and resistance during the arrest, so the cops forcefully pushed him off the wheelchair and dragged him across the ground. They were constantly demanding him to walk, ignoring that he is in a wheelchair. Just how dumb can you be? Then, Officer Cavender did something even more horrifying. He pulled out his taser and used it 4 times on the disabled old man. The cop charged the old man with resisting and using violence, which is not true at all. So, apart from using excessive force, he also lied on the reports. The cop was fired when the footage went viral. Cop spits at a teenager. In this unusual footage, you will see a cop trying his best to force his authority. 3 teenagers, 2 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old, had pointed a BB gun from their convertible and had allegedly aimed it at the cops and at some civilians. When the cops caught on to them, they ran off, resulting in a few hours of a high-speed chase. It ended with the police officers detaining and arresting the teens in handcuffs. Fair enough, right? But what the footage shows next is quite disturbing. The cops held the heads of the teenagers as they punched and kicked them. One officer, Domingo Diaz, was pushed off the detained teen by another officer because he'd gone absolutely berserk on the poor kid. After he was removed, he came back and spat on the juvenile who was still in handcuffs. The video went viral and raised a lot of questions about the officer's brutal authority. He was suspended with pay later on, so some justice was served at least. Officer slams man on the floor. This poor man was simply recording on a public property, which he has the complete right to do so. But the officers with their huge egos wanted to take their anger out on someone and decided it would be on this man. The corrupt cops first accused the man of selling drugs to people. Then, they went on to say that he was the reason an overdosed woman was lying a few feet away from them, dead, although she was only unconscious. For a made-up accusation, a cop picked the man up and slammed him on the ground, injuring his head severely. The matter was hushed, but the CCTV camera caught their troubling act for all to see. Booking officer assaults an inmate. A young man was charged with carjacking and brought as a felon to the prison cell. The CCTV footage shows the felon exchanging a few words with the booking officer that somehow triggered him. Officer Matthew Rodriguez released his anger on the inmate by throwing a heavy punch. After that, he goes on to shove the man hard onto the wall. The other cops come as if they would help the poor man. But in the end, they do nothing. Officer Rodriguez then picks up the man and throws him on the ground, while the officers stare dumbfounded. He then slams his head on the floor as he sits on top of him. Moments after that, the video shows the cop pulling the man by his hair and throwing him into the jail cell. The footage has raised serious concerns about the booking officer, and reports say that he is on leave until his hearing. Officer plants drugs at a site. This dirty cop thinks he's being sneaky while planting drugs and then magically finding them, but his dumb brain did not remember he was wearing a body cam. The video shows him throwing a can of drugs on the ground. Moments later, he picks it up and shows the white capsules out of the can in his body cam. The man booked for the drugs was released after the footage went viral. Nigerian police officer asks for a bribe. This tourist was out on her motorbike riding across the roads in Nigeria. She was stopped by the cops for some routine questioning, but it ended up exposing them for their dirty crimes. The cops started off by having a friendly conversation with the tourist, asking her about her well-being and family. Moments later, the officers started demanding money. They nagged her for more than 30 seconds to give them a treat. Somehow, the tourist got out and managed to drive away without giving any bribe. Cop dragged an uncooperative woman. A call was made to the cops about a woman who was sleeping on the premises of the Tampa Family House Center. She was refusing to leave, so the authorities left it to the police to handle the situation. When the cops arrived, they arrested her for trespassing. They then took her to county jail, and that's when things got a bit troubling. One of the cops escalated the situation, and what happened next could not be described as legal or decent. He came up to the squad car and demanded the woman get out, but she refused. The two argue for a while until the cop threatens the uncooperative woman that he will drag her out if he has to. The woman refuses to listen and urges the officer to drag her, so the cop pulls her out and throws her on the ground. When she denies standing up to walk, he slides her on the ground to the jail. Reports say that the woman was not injured, but the officer was fired for violating multiple policies. Trooper's misconduct with a protester. This man was out on the side of the road with his sign saying there was a police speed limit trap a few miles down the road. Two troopers came down to talk to him, claiming that someone had called to remove him from the roadside. Note that the man had done no crime of the sort, and there were no such witnesses to the crime either. The troopers just saw the sign and paraded in to forcefully take the sign away from him. They did succeed in their efforts by gaslighting him, but the man warned the cops that he would be here again with the same sign. The next day came, and their misconduct escalated. The man was pulled over for a traffic stop because he had flipped off the cops from his window. When the cops saw that, they forcibly opened his car door. They kept pulling him out to arrest him and even claimed that he had broken multiple laws, although he still had not done any crime. Yet the cops were adamant on booking him for no reason. Earlier, before the traffic stop, the cops were heard talking to their partners about whether they could arrest a guy for flipping them off. Even though their partners responded by saying they could not, they still proceeded to pull off this embarrassing buffoonery and were caught on camera while doing so. Let's hope they got punishment for being a bully. Cops use excessive force while making an arrest. This man had been arrested before for drug charges. When the cops found him again, they claimed that they saw the man swallow a bag. They believe that it could have been heroin or cocaine. So they arrested him, but one problem: they did not do it legally. One of the cops slammed his head on the car's window, and you can see the glass cracking due to the brutal impact. Although the victim did not suffer any injury, it made it easier for the cops to lie. Had it not been for the footage, the officers would have gotten away with using excessive force on the man while arresting him. A YouTuber stopped by a bad cop. This YouTuber was out on a drive when he was suddenly stopped by a trooper at a DUI checkpoint. The cop instantly goes on to say that the man needed to get out of the car so they could search the vehicle. Even when the young man asked if he was being detained, the cop simply ignored that question. Instead, he kept demanding that the YouTuber exit the vehicle and pointed at the dog to justify his cause. Although the YouTuber was stopped at a DUI point, the troopers made no effort to do a sobriety test on him or even ask him if he was intoxicated. Instead, they were quite keen on finding something from his car. Since the cops were not backing off, the YouTuber finally got out of the vehicle. But when they noticed the camera placed inside the car, they quickly pulled out and let the YouTuber walk away without any charges. This is why you need dash cams, people. Police officers gaslight and arrest a guy.
You need to go.
No, I don't. I'm waiting on my son. He's my ride back to Walson.
Leave.
This man was waiting for his son, who was pulled over for a traffic stop by the troopers. But the dirty cops did not like the old man waiting just behind the police car. First, they came up and demanded that he leave the location. When he started to drive away, the cops decided that they wanted him to stay and ordered him to get out of the car. They forcefully took him out of the truck, tased him about 35 times, and then shoved him in the back of the police car. Even after they had put him in handcuffs, the cops continued to tase him and verbally abuse him. While they were doing this, they had no legal reason to arrest the man who was simply waiting for his son. The dirty cops claimed that the man was not listening to their orders, although they were the ones who kept changing their demands. Both the cops were fired after the incident, and the man was given $1.5 million over a settlement with the Las Animas Sheriff's Office. Cop harassing an innocent citizen. A cop was called to a location about a suspicious bonfire within the apartment complex. The area, according to the police, was a high-crime area. When he got to the location, a man on a bike was leaving a house. The cop caught up to him and then went back to his vehicle. Just as he was contacting the department, the man on the bike started moving. So the cop raced to him and demanded that he lie down on the ground. Even though the man seems to be complying with each and every order of the dirty cop without knowing his crime, the cop continuously yells at him and then takes him to the police car. As he is running his ID, the cop decides, based on his opinion, that the man should go to jail simply because he was arguing with him. The cop tries to justify his behavior by pinning multiple crimes on the man on the bike. First, he says that the suspect was resisting and arguing, and then he says he was trying to flee from a cop, although he was walking at a normal pace. They eventually detain him, and there is little information on what happened to him afterwards. But the police department sadly stood by their cops in their wrongful actions, refusing to punish him. Cop plants a drug in man's wallet. This man is being arrested for a hit and run. Turns out, though, the cops want to put more charges on him, even if it is without evidence. When he was being detained in handcuffs, the body cam footage of a police officer showed him picking up a wallet from the ground. He silently asks his partner whose wallet it was, to which the cop nods towards the suspect. The officer with the wallet then picks up what looks like a small bag of cocaine and then motions to his partner that he will be putting it inside the wallet. After getting the approval, he turns off the audio on his body cam for 30 seconds. Once he has done the deed, he turns it back on and produces the cocaine out of the wallet. He shows it to all of the officers and successfully adds the drug charge to the suspect's record. Later, the footage was aired by the department itself, saying that they had removed one of the officers due to this corrupt act. So at least some good cops are out there to keep these corrupt ones in check. Dirty cop fails to report the assault. Officer Mitchell Miller had arrested this young man for public intoxication. He was taking the arrested suspect to the jail entrance when he looked at Officer Miller. The audio may not be available, but it does not look like the suspect said anything. The dirty cop reacted by forcefully pushing the young man on the floor. The cop pulled him back up and slammed him on the concrete floor, making him lose consciousness almost instantly. What's not surprising is that the cop did not report the incident to the department. When the authorities found out, they fired him on the spot. Can't say he did not deserve it. Cop brutally arrests a school senior. This woman was on a ride coming home from school when she was pulled over at a gas station by this dirty cop. The video from the body cam is not available for the whole fiasco, but the CCTV footage from the gas station gave enough insight into the matter. The officer came up to the young girl and demanded that she roll down the window. Within seconds, he slams the door open and is seen communicating with the young girl. Not even 30 seconds go by and the cop goes in, props her seatbelt open, and rips her out of the driver's seat. He slams her on the ground and detains her. Later, the body cam footage shows that the ID card and license were lying on the floor a few feet away from the young woman. Why is that important? Well, the crime, as per the cop's claims, was that she was refusing to identify herself and was not complying with his orders. But she must have been taking out her ID card since it flew with her during the fall. Her family also later confirmed that the girl was taking her ID out from the backseat of her car. When the footage went viral, there was a public outcry. Only after there was criticism from the audience was the officer fired. The interesting thing is that this was not the first time the officer had crossed the line and was suspended less than a year ago for losing his temper in a similar manner. What a disgrace to the police force. Undercover cops plants evidence. This police officer was given the task of putting a bag of cocaine in a shop to frame the owner and arrest him. The dirty cop might have been successful in his mission, but he was caught on camera while doing the crime. You can see how the cop waits for the owner to move away. As soon as the owner becomes distracted, the officer nervously moves away and throws the small bag with cocaine behind the counter. The owner was arrested, and the tapes were confiscated by the police department. It was not until years later, when they were finally shown in court by the owner's lawyer, that the whole matter was made public. Police slams down the wrong door.
Open the door! We're taking the door!
This group of police officers were called to the location about a mentally ill man who was throwing things from his window. When they came inside the building, the lead cop rammed a random door without checking on the address. He then proceeded to lead his pack inside the apartment with their guns pointed. The woman inside was taking a bath and had to cover herself up to talk to them. It is a miracle they did not shoot. When she got outside, she was visibly shaking and could not stop herself from crying. The officers then had to be told that they were at the wrong address. How can you mess up this bad and remain a cop? That's all on the corrupt cops and their petty misdemeanors against the alleged suspects. These were only the cops that were caught on camera. Who knows how many brutal cases go on unnoticed and unreported? Which one did you think was the most corrupt cop out there? Let us know in the comments and share with us a story if you ever encountered a dirty cop. We would love to hear your thoughts. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We will be coming up with more exciting videos soon. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.